I forgot to stop the recording, to start the recording. So admit all. See, that's a challenge. Hopefully it's recording now. Yeah, it's recording. So the first 14 minutes were not recorded. So I didn't want to, I got to just automatically start the recording next time. I didn't want to automatically start the recording because I wasn't certain we we're going to get this thing set up. But now it's recording. So I will post this this recording on the cyber campus. And so I don't know who's really interested in going through that, but I will post this. Well, I will try. I see that, again, the cyber campus website does not, and that was really what goes on. You see, now I understand why. I teach another class before this class, and if I want to share screen, it stops each time I go to cyber campus because it's recording. So that's the difference. If you don't record the video show, if I don't record this, it's easy to share my screen. But if I want to record it, each time I shift to a new tab or a new file, I have to restart the screen sharing function. Now I understand. Okay, why was it was too easy to go back and forth and keep sharing the screen, but that's because I wasn't recording. Now that I'm recording our meeting, each time I share a screen with you, I have to go back and click on share screen for the new file. Ah, now I see. Okay, that's why. So yeah, see, we're all learning how to use Zoom. I used Zoom a little bit over the summer for these conferences, right? And I tried to do some exercises and tutorials. So this is where we're going to post all the files, including the recording of this show. I will post it there, but it might be too big. That's my concern. This is a 2-hour class, and this cyber campus it won't accept files over 100 megabytes. The files have to be less than 100 megabytes. So it might not be possible to post the Zoom recordings of our class meetings on cyber campus because they're too big. They're bigger than 100 megabytes. I might be able to post them on my Google Drive, Cloud Drive, but there's limited capacity there. I'm already up to 11 gigabytes. I only have 15 gigabytes free. If I start posting large Zoom recordings there, it might fill up. But I don't know. I don't know. These Zoom recordings, I have to see how big this recorded class will be to see if I can post it here under the material tab of the Cyber Campus website. But I'm wondering it might not be possible. Ooh, somebody sent me a message. What's this? Yeah, okay, about 1 hour ago. Yeah, somebody, what's this? Oh, I shouldn't show you private messages. So material, so you can see I can post chapter 1 notes, but the files cannot be larger than 100 megabytes. So, okay. Okay, so let's go back to, see, and now you see it stopped the, so I have to go back and now do new share and go back to, what's this? Share, what is that? No, that's not the one I wanted. Yeah, okay, oh yeah, that's it. So those are the notes. And, but let's go back to the syllabus first. I think I already opened the syllabus. See if I can find, okay. Oh, it's still there. Okay, it's under Word. I think when I shift between computer programs, Word to PowerPoint to Chrome, then I have to restart the screen sharing. But if I just shift between 2 Word documents, no problem. Okay, okay. So for this week, we're getting organized. This is the add drop week. So we know by Friday who's in the class. And then starting next week, next Monday, I will ask you to write and submit a paragraph for next week. And that paragraph is on this topic. To South Koreans, the Chinese political system is more effective in responding to globalization than the US political system. And I will give you, of course, I already uploaded the chapter 1 notes. And like I said, I really rewrote the chapter in my own words. So that's really kind of unique or effective, because some of you might be wondering or worried, oh, my English is not so good. Well, you can go like this, right? And now if I go to Google Translate, hooray, Google Translate. See if I can do that without how that works. Like this. So far, so good. Google Translate. Ah, okay. English, copy the notes there. Korean, hooray! See, you can use Google Translate to help understand the notes that I'm posting. I think you can also, on that PDF file of the textbook, you can copy paste from the PDF file English here into English and get the Korean translation, right? So your English doesn't have to be outstanding in order to be able to understand the material information in the class, okay? Because this translation function on the internet, not just with Google Chrome, but Naver and others, has gotten really, really good, right? So that's useful, that's helpful. And so, yeah, still screen sharing, okay, it's good. And let me see, I guess it's recording. I guess it's recording. So if we go to, I want to make sure that everybody's in the class that is supposed to be, is in the class, that's good. So, okay, so we go to Zoom. I don't want to annotate. So we go here. I don't want to do that. Cancel. Okay, so back to the syllabus. So for next Friday, I would ask you to send me a 150-word paragraph on this topic. You take a position on this question. I make a statement. To South Koreans, the Chinese political system is more effective in responding to globalization than the US political system. What's your opinion? What's your view? And I would like you to use the information from chapter 1 in the book to support and prove your point. Okay? This is a college class, so you do college writing. In college writing, any claim or any statement you make, or I make, because I have to write too, right? I have to write papers like you have to write papers. I have to write papers, and I have to submit my papers to other people to grade. And they decide whether or not what I write is good or not. And then what's this? They decide whether or not what I write is good or not. And if it's good enough, they'll publish what I write. And I'm, always trying to write things too. So I'm asking you to write. I'm asking you to write. And I'm asking you to write, and I'm asking you to do what I have to do, right? I'm asking you to do what I have to do. And I'm trying to find the Zoom site. I would like to have the whole Zoom thing be big, and so I can make sure that everything is working here, but I don't see, I don't want to end meeting for all, like this. You all hear me, right? So I guess it's still working. I don't want to accidentally kick us off, so I don't want to do something silly. So I don't want to do something by mistake. But you appear to be hearing me, which is good. So I'm just wondering why I can't see you in the big Zoom. Oh, no. Don't want to end class. I want to show. Well, anyway, you see me, right? I see you, you see me. So let's just continue. I want you to send to me a 150-word paragraph, 150 word or more paragraph on this topic. You take a position, yes or no, and you send that to me before class next Friday, not this Friday, next Friday, right? So that would be, today's the 31st, so by September 11, send me your paragraph by September 11 on that topic. And send it to me before class. You can send it to me to my email address, or that's the most obvious way because I check my email, every 5 minutes, right? You might be able to send it through Cyber Campus, but I'm not certain how Cyber Campus attachments work. But make sure any statement or claim that you make, you support with evidence, that you cite from chapter 1 and the preface in the textbook, in the information in the textbook. And so let me show you from the notes in the textbook. See if I can, let me see if I can do it like this. Notes in the textbook. Okay. You can see what I also did is I show you where all of this information is located. So, this is the preface, right? End page 38. That means all of this is on page 38 in the preface until page 37 in the preface. So you don't even need the textbook right now to write your paragraphs because I give you the information here. And I tell you where it's at, on which page. So you should cite the page in your paragraph where the information is located in the book that you are using to support your position on the debate topic. And the plan is to have a debate, an in-class debate on the topic. And we should be able to do this on Zoom once we become more familiar with it. And, because everybody can talk on Zoom. You can even vote on Zoom. I can do surveys of participants on conferences on Zoom. We can do everything in Zoom that we did in class, face-to-face, once we become comfortable with the technology, right? So, so far this is working good, I think. And I don't see anybody waiting to get into the class, which is good. Everybody's in the class that's supposed to be in the class, I think. And, oh yeah, okay, I see what you did, you chatted. Yeah, I don't check the chat, obviously, because I'm kind of busy talking, right? But you can chat with each other while I'm talking. But I don't think it's going to be very easy for me to look at the chat function when I'm trying to present the material. So yeah, I can see. Good. You're using all of the computer technology. And so I show you where all the information is located. So tell me, on what page is the information located that you are using? See, end page 4. This is chapter 1. So all of this is from page 4 of the book until here, with hook statements, the author of the textbook's evident information, and my commentary, BD, that's me. So you have an idea what my views are, my reaction to what Hook has written, the Professor Hook has written in the textbook. And I've done this with each chapter. I even took pictures of the chart of the charts. See my fingers there? And okay, so anybody has a question, you're welcome to ask anytime. I'll try to make this more interactive with exercises and breakout classes, and that means we have to use the breakout rooms, and that'll be fun. We should be able to do that. Okay, so let me go back to the my lesson plan. And it's not, oh, it says screen sharing, so you can see my lesson plan then, huh? Okay, good. It says you are screen sharing. So why do we study US foreign policy? Well, you have the privilege or the curse of being a student at a time of tremendous change in US foreign policy and therefore in the world. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the world crisis, the world economic depression, the response, political response of the US government and the other governments of these countries in response to the crisis, including their foreign policy responses. So you're already seeing, for example, Donald Trump attempting to win re-election in November 3rd of this year, in a little over 2 months. He wants to be reelected as President of the United States, and he's trying to excite the American people by focusing on China as the big, terrible threat to the United States. So he calls the coronavirus the Wuhan virus or the China virus, trying to mobilize the Americans behind him by claiming that China used the virus in some way to undermine or even attack the United States. And we have to support Donald Trump in this time of conflict with China. Very dangerous, but also very familiar in history, not just with the Trump administration, but with previous presidents or other governments in other countries, in Russia, in China, right? So, but of course now we have political instability and turmoil in the United States, the most powerful country in the world, militarily, economically, with thousands of nuclear weapons. And any issue or question like global climate change and the crises of global climate change, or addressing the COVID-19 pandemic effectively, requires United States involvement. The United States will be involved. Will be involved effectively or not? That's a different question. We will attempt to understand our stereotypes we have of the United States, that Americans have of themselves, and that American stereotypes that Americans have of the rest of the world, of China, of Russia, of Europe, of Korea. Why do they have those stereotypes? Why do they have those images? Where do they come from? And what do they mean? We will talk about that in this class. And a lot of this is obvious, right? The United States has great influence over where you are living and studying. Right now in South Korea, there are 30,000 US soldiers in South Korea. North Korea is 30 kilometers away from us. We're within artillery range, the range of North Korean guns, artillery weapons. North Korea doesn't need nuclear weapons to destroy Seoul. It can destroy Seoul in 2 hours just with its artillery. if it wants to, right? And North Korea is, well, it's not clear how politically stable it is. Everything changes, including North Korea and the United States. Will it change peacefully or will it change violently? That's the important question. The United States has thousands of nuclear weapons that can destroy the world number of times, many times over. And the Trump administration is challenging the prevailing views in the United States about America's leadership role, its self-proclaimed leadership role in the world. The Trump administration is challenging, but without being clear with what is it going to replace. The prevailing views that have dominated US foreign policy since 1949, let us say, when the Cold War began to intensify and became really intense with the Korean War in 1950. We have some French students, some Belgian students in this class. NATO's creation, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization's creation, was instigated or accelerated in response to the Korean War. Many people in the US government, like Paul Nitze, thought North Korea attacked South Korea because Joseph Stalin told Kim Il-sung, now attack South Korea. And it was the start of Joseph Stalin's move to try to conquer the world. That Joseph Stalin, Americans believed, wrongly, but this is what they believed, that Joseph Stalin was a Russian version of Adolf Hitler in Germany. Imagine if Adolf Hitler had nuclear weapons. Joseph Stalin got nuclear weapons in 1949. He finally developed them and they tested them. And to many Americans, like Paul Nitze and other leaders, it was not a coincidence that Joseph Stalin supposedly allowed Kim Il-sung to attack South Korea, because he knew that the Americans could not use nuclear weapons against the Soviet Union, supposedly, because now the Soviet Union had nuclear weapons. That's the prevailing view in the United States since the late 1940s, and it's still the prevailing view among many people in Washington today, that America saved the world from a Russian version of Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union, that the Soviet Union was a Russian version of Nazi Germany. It wanted to conquer the world the way Adolf Hitler's Germany wanted to conquer the world, and the Americans stopped it. America saved you, and you, and you, and me. America should provide leadership for the world. It should spend the money. It should have military bases everywhere, because America saved the world from totalitarianism. America saved the world from World War III, and America will and should prevent new threats like Nazism and fascism and communism from emerging, like political Islam. That's the new threat, according to many people in Washington. Not everybody, but many people in Washington. Donald Trump talks in certain ways, and certain people around him say certain things, but it's not clear what, they don't really have a strategy. Their strategy is focused on getting Donald Trump reelected. So their strategy is upon American domestic public opinion. That seems to be the driving motivation for Donald Trump. Say anything, do anything to get reelected in 2 months. On November 3rd, 2020 is the US presidential election. And many Americans don't like having all of these American military bases everywhere. America, let me show you something else here. According to one report, the United States has at least, around planet Earth, US has 514 overseas military bases. American military bases are everywhere. Why? Because we were containing the Russian version of Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union. So we had to put military bases around the Soviet Union to contain Russian, Soviet, communist imperialism. That's why you are here right now in this class. You are children of the Cold War. America fought the Korean War because they believed that the Soviet Union was a Russian version of Nazi Germany, and told Kim Il-sung as Stalin's agent, his minion, his underling, to do Stalin's work of conquering South Korea. And then by taking South Korea, communism would become even more powerful and become even more aggressive and hungry for more, and take Japan and take India and take Europe and Africa and eventually take America. As I've said in other classes, in 1950, on June 24, 1950, 99% of Americans could not find Korea on a map. 99% of Americans would not be able to find Korea on a map. Why did the Americans fight a war in Korea? Why? Because of the experience with Hitler. Do not appease an aggressive power. The Soviet Union is an imperialist power. And if you just let the communists, remember, this is the American belief. Mao Zedong, Kim Il-sung, Fidel Castro, they all work for Stalin. They all work for the communists. Not Fidel Castro, he came later. Kim Il-sung, Ho Chi Minh, Mao Zedong, they all are Stalin's henchmen. Stalin cannot act like Adolf Hitler and just send the Soviet army into South Korea because the Americans are there and they have nuclear weapons. So this Soviet Russian communists will not act like gangsters in a hurry, mafiosi in a hurry, the way Hitler and his gang acted. No, they will be more sneaky and subtle. Stalin won't invade South Korea himself. He will say, oh, it's Kim Il-sung. He did it. I don't, not my fault. Yes. That's how he will act, because we have nuclear weapons. A nuclear war would be bad. So he'll work through his henchmen. This is a stereotype. This is wrong. But this was the prevailing view during the Cold War, that wherever the communists attempt to expand, the Americans must contain them, to show them that the Americans have the will to resist the Soviets, and that the Soviets spend lots of money on weapons and guns and nuclear bombs with no good result. They don't create a world empire. The people in the Soviet Union live in terrible conditions. Why? Because they're not allowed to buy nice things, because the money is spent on guns, weapons, to conquer the world. But if they can't conquer the world, eventually the Soviet system will become unstable, because it needs to give some kind of payoff to the Soviet people, some kind of benefit. If you're not going to give Soviet people money to buy good food and nice apartments, if you're not going to give them money for consumption, then you at least have to give them imperial glory and imperial success. You are suffering in the Soviet Union, but look at what Moscow is doing. It's conquering the world. Be proud of your sacrifice, Soviet people. So we must contain them. Wherever the communists attempted to expand, they must be contained. The lesson was supposedly the failure in dealing with Hitler. They appeased Hitler. London under Neville Chamberlain, and Daladier in France, and Roosevelt in Washington. They said, oh, Hitler wants the German people in the Czechoslovakia to leave Czechoslovakia and let their people come from the lands in Czechoslovakia, take those parts of Czechoslovakia that are German and bring them into Germany, because they're being oppressed. The German people in Czechoslovakia, the German minority is being oppressed. by the terrible Czechs oppressing the Germans. And so this is what Hitler said. I want human rights for the German people. I want them to live freely and not be oppressed by this terrible Czech government. He was lying. But that's what he said. And London and Paris, okay, we'll appease you, Hitler. We'll let you join with Austria. We'll let you have the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia. We'll appease you. We'll give it to you. And you'll become nice and calm now, right? No! No! He became even more aggressive, more belligerent, because by appeasing Hitler, the West showed, London and Paris and the United States showed that they were weak and lacked the will to resist. And Hitler could say, see my fellow Germans, they're a bunch of decadent, weak wimps. They gave me, I pushed them and I pushed them and I pushed them, and they gave me the German territories of Czechoslovakia. They don't have the will to resist. So Germany became even more aggressive through appeasement. And the belief was that the Soviet Union was a Russian version of Nazi Germany. So we cannot let them have South Korea. We cannot let them have South Vietnam. We cannot let them have Chile. We cannot let them have the Congo. We cannot let them have anywhere. We have to contain, stop them. That's why there are 514, at least 514 American military bases around the world. Why the US military is so big. I mean, the American military budget, according to, if I can find, let's see if I can go back without too much trouble finding those notes from the book, and I have to reopen them here, right? I think he showed that the U.S. military budget somewhere here is 38% of the total world's military expenditures are just the United States. Maybe it's the next chapter. It's not in this chapter. The US military budget is bigger than the next 8 countries combined. Chinese budget, Russia's military budget, Germany, France's, Britain's military budget. US military budget is bigger than all of them together. To this day. But the fundamental assumption about justifying that is that the Americans saved the world from a Russian version of Nazi Germany. And there were lots of tremendous economic interests that developed around the containment strategy. The Americans had to buy lots of guns, tanks, ships, weapons, bombs. They had to buy those weapons and planes and ships and tanks and helicopters from American companies. And those American companies made lots of money. And they hired lots of people to work for them. And those people vote in elections. And those people want to keep their jobs. And so they like to argue and really believe that, yeah, America must provide global leadership. And we see, even though Donald Trump one day says, NATO's bad, the other day he says, South Korea needs to give us more money for American soldiers. We see the US military budget goes up and up and up, even under Trump, up and up and up and up. If Joe Biden wins the presidential election in the United States on November 3rd, 2020, and he becomes president on January 20, 2021, he's probably going to go back to this. He's not going to challenge these 514 American military bases around the world. I don't think, right? Joe Biden is Mr. Establishment. He is a product of the Cold War and the post-Cold War establishment. Trump, he is not willing to, he's talking about ending American military involvement in Afghanistan, but he's not really There's still 8,000 soldiers there. They're still killing people. They're still doing bombing missions in Afghanistan. He says one thing, but then the government does something else. And that can generate instability. I mean, everybody around the world is waiting to see what the results of the election will be. If Trump gets reelected, he doesn't have to worry about future elections. So maybe he'll become even more erratic, turbulent. If Biden becomes president, they'll go back to this status quo that they have been focused on in the book. I mean, the textbook came out last year, which means CUK finished it in 2018. Trump was inaugurated as president on January 20, 2017. So there's some discussion about Trump, but not very much in the book. We'll have to provide that discussion here in the classroom. So you know what? If this was a face-to-face meeting, I would give you a 10-minute break now. Is that what other professors do in these Zoom classes? For the 2-hour class sessions for two shigan, you get 10-minute break? Is that what other professors do?
It depends on professor.
Do you want a 10-minute break? And come and restart it in 10 minutes? Is it difficult to listen to me go on and on and on? You need to go to the bathroom. You need to go to the bathroom. You need to get a cup of coffee, something over the next 10 minutes. Okay, I'll tell you what, let's take a 10-minute break and then I'll start talking again at 11 o'clock. You can go to the bathroom, you can get some coffee, and then at 11 o'clock I'll restart. And then maybe we'll do a poll, I'll do a survey to see who wants to just continue and finish early and who wants the 10-minute break to decide what we'll do in the future, okay? But right now, let's take a break and come back and I'll start again at 11 o'clock in 10 minutes, okay? So I won't sign off or anything, but I'll just give you 10 minutes to go do what you gotta do, okay? In the meantime, I wanna check to make sure that everybody's, oh, see, somebody's waiting to get in this class. I don't know how long she's been waiting. Okay. And so, okay, I also want to see, I see you here, but I'm not seeing the big Zoom screen, you know, the Zoom screen. I don't see my Zoom screen. I see the tabs at the bottom here, but, and I don't want to shut down anything. I'm afraid, you know, I'll sign off and I don't want to do that. I don't want to pause recording. I just want to, wondering why, where is the, no, I don't want to end meeting. Well, it's not really necessary as long as you keep seeing me here. So maybe I'll just run my, no, I don't want to do that. If I go to Cyber Campus, yeah, you see on the Cyber Campus, I posted that. So here, this is what I talk about in this video presentation. In the paper, because of the presentation for the conference that we are attending on the Learner, and I would like to use the opportunity to the virtual presentation, the video presentation, to present the poster that I have also prepared and use that as my outline for my presentation. So the title of the presentation is The Vietnam War and American Nationalism, the Institutionalization of Stereotypes in Post-War American Foreign Policy, and foreign policy-making process, specifically. And in the paper that I prepared as the basis in which I created the poster, I want to explore why the defeat of the United States in the Vietnam War didn't have more of an impact in the Cold War, and what is the significance of the Vietnam War in terms of understanding American foreign policy today. Because as I've argued elsewhere, the prevailing view in the United States, not the only view, but the prevailing politically dominant view, is that the United States won the Cold War. I mean, just saying it sounds so obvious to me, because it seems to be something which the media and the discourses elsewhere also assume. The Cold War is over. It's been over for about 30 years now, and the United States won. What does that mean to win the Cold War? It means the assumptions underlying that statement is that the United States defeated the Soviet Union because the Soviet Union was an aggressive imperialist power, and the United States contained it, successfully contained it. That, to go back to the beginning of the Cold War, the assumption, prevailing political view, not the only view, but the prevailing political view, was that the Soviet Union was in effect a Russian version of Nazi Germany. And the Soviet Union was more dangerous than Nazi Germany because it had a much more appealing ideology, socialism, and just a few years after the Americans developed the atomic bomb, they developed the atomic bomb. And so it was a dangerous Russian version of Nazi Germany, and the United States could not make the same mistake that was assumed to have been made in dealing with Nazi Germany. Appeasing the Soviet Union was not permissible, the way London and Paris had appeased Berlin in the 1930s. Appeasement of Berlin in the 1930s made Germany even more warlike, because it confirmed the prevailing view within London, again, not the only view, not Winston Churchill's view, but Neville Chamberlain's view, that Germany under Hitler was belligerent because it was rebelling against national humiliation and repression via the 1919 Treaty of Versailles and the restrictions put on Germany after World War I. And by appeasing Germany, in other words, giving Germany equal status as a great power in Europe with France, with Britain, and the other great powers, would appease them, would placate them, and rather than continue to escalate, to demand equal treatment. But of course, we all know that that failed, and that failed because the belligerency behind Germany's behavior was due to the fact that Germany under Hitler was belligerent because not because it perceived a threat from London and Paris and the Soviet Union and the United States, not because it perceived a threat against which Germany had to be strong and belligerent to demand equality, but rather because Germany under Hitler saw opportunity. Germany was belligerent because it saw a marvelous opportunity. It misperceived a marvelous opportunity because it believed, the prevailing view was, espoused particularly by Hitler, was that London and Paris and Moscow and the United States were politically degenerate, that they were weak and degenerate. They were unable to organize themselves. They lacked the will and determination to put their potential capabilities, their power potential capabilities into action because of their political weakness and degeneracy. So looking on paper in terms of the population sizes of Germany's adversaries, the statistics in terms of economic capability, yeah, it might be much greater than Germany's, but Germany had the tremendous advantage in having the will and determination to do what was necessary in order for Germany to establish German supremacy under Hitler in Europe and the world. And by responding to Germany's belligerency by appeasing it, served to unfortunately confirm that perception. So it made World War II more likely, not less. And so after World War II, as the prevailing view in the United States in Washington emerged that the Soviet Union was belligerent because it was a Russian version of Nazi Germany, they had to be contained, not appeased. Hence, the Americans fought wars in Korea, in Vietnam, and you can find statements, of course, to that very effect. Like Lyndon Johnson, we let Ho Chi Minh, supposed Russian surrogate in Vietnam, be victorious over Saigon. It would not appease the communist world. It would make it even more aggressive, the way Germany became more aggressive as a consequence of Munich appeasement of Germany at the Munich Conference and allowing Germany to expand its control over the Sudetenland and Czechoslovakia. And so that's why the United States fought these distant wars, because just writing off South Korea or writing off South Vietnam would make the communist world under Moscow even more belligerent, even more aggressive, and of course, controlling more resources, making World War III more likely. And that seems to be the prevailing view today in the United States. And that is a justification for so much of American foreign policy today in terms of the expansion of American influence, the expansion of NATO into Eastern Europe, for example, has a number of factors, but one of the critical factors is the belief that those institutions that were created as part of containment of communism emanating from Moscow are sources for peace, are good institutions that must not only be preserved after the Cold War is over, but expanded because of their critical role in saving the world from communist totalitarianism. And so, and of course, in this Manichaean worldview that characterized the Cold Warriors, who saw the world divided between the free world versus the communist totalitarian world, they didn't see in their Manichaean worldview, good versus evil, a third force, nationalism. And consequently, they didn't see Vietnamese nationalism. They didn't see these as forces that were demanding independence, and powerful forces that defeated the United States. National self-determination demands defeated the Soviet Union and Afghanistan. So the question is then, why, when the United States intervened in the Cold War, and intervened in Southeast Asia, and suffered that horrible defeat with tremendous costs, and particularly for the peoples of Southeast Asia, why did they not reassess their worldview about the division of the world in this bipolar Manichaean way? Okay, well, I mean, I think that's pretty good. And you're welcome to look at that on your own, and I might show further parts of it. It sort of summarizes, what I've spent a lot of time thinking about and working on, particularly since I started my career. And so, why does the United States act the way it acts? And so, when we look at the CUK textbook. Maybe that's a good point to go look at the notes again, if I can find them here without shutting down everything. Let's see here. So you can see those, right? So during the Bush years, Obama years, a credibility crisis with many nations overseas upset with U.S. action. Specifically, the United States had a credibility crisis because it did things like torture suspected terrorists, targeted killings using aerial drones, right? Killing enemies without a trial, not on soldiers fighting them on the battlefield face to face, but sending planes with missiles, automatic piloted planes directed from control rooms in the middle of the United States thousands and thousands of kilometers away, killing people, claiming, well, they're terrorists, they're threats to American soldiers, so we kill them. No trial, no attempt to capture, just kill them. Covert surveillance of foreign leaders and also of US citizens, including US allies. The United States was found to have been monitoring, had tapped into Angela Merkel, Chancellor Prime Minister, her smartphone. So they were, every time she used her smartphone, US government was recording her conversations, for example. And again, why was the United States doing these things? Why is the United States killing combatants thousands of miles away using aerial drones? Again, it keeps coming back to this notion. The justification for all of this behavior always includes the claim the United States saved the world. The United States saved the world from communist totalitarianism. Therefore, the United States should have the benefit of the doubt in taking leadership roles around the world, because the assumption is that the Soviet Union was a Russian version of Nazi Germany, and it wanted to conquer the world, and the Americans stopped Stalin from moving from Germany into Paris and Rome and Madrid and Brussels through Operation Overlord, when the Americans sent their invasion fleet into Nazi-occupied Europe in 1944. If they hadn't been there, the Russians would not have stopped at Berlin. They would have gone on to Paris and Madrid and Lisbon and Rome. And that was the most complex military exercise ever undertaken. Amphibious assault landing of that size had never been done before, the Americans claim, in July 1944, Operation Overlord. And then the Americans then initiate, or then understood or come to the conclusion that Stalin is hoping to exploit the weakness of Europe, devastated by war, destroyed by war, economically vanquished by war, that Stalin and communism would offer the promise of a better world under communism, plus the Soviet Red Army would now march into the rest of Europe and conquer Europe. And the Americans had to stop them, not because the Americans are nice guys, but because Stalin wouldn't stop with Europe and Asia. He would want to conquer the whole world. So America had to fight in Korea, had to fight in Vietnam, had to implement NATO and put lots of American bases and soldiers in Europe, not because it loved human rights, but because it wanted to protect itself, ultimately. It's America's national security. And you hear the same words today. America must be involved around the world everywhere, because we have learned from the 20th century that America's national security is very much connected to what China does in Asia or what Russia does in Ukraine. So, okay, then Trump talks about America first, America first, America first. It appears to me, for example, Trump doesn't like Angela Merkel in Germany very much, but he's not leaving NATO. He's moving American soldiers right now from Germany to Poland, because Poland is more pro-American than Germany. The Polish government is like Donald Trump's government in the United States. It's conservative, it's populist, it's traditional, and it's anti-liberal. So he's moving American soldiers right now as we speak from Germany to Poland. He's not taking them out of Europe. He's moving them to another place, and it'll cost more money to do that, to build new bases in Poland. So Donald Trump talks a lot, but the actions of what they do are not as radical as the words that he expresses. Partly because, as I said, there are millions and millions of people who live and work in the United States, who have their careers and they're invested in containment and an American national global expansion. Like me. I'm a professor in South Korea, teaching in English. Somebody like me might believe it's very important for America to stay very active in Asia because my job derives from that. I mean, you could take this university and you could drop it anywhere in the United States, and an American student in the United States would recognize everything about it, how it's organized, its credit hours, its Zoom software. It's all the American model with some slight changes. It's not the German model. I don't know enough about the French model. It's not the Bulgarian model. It's the American model. What are the sources of America's power and influence? The Americans like to believe that they are exceptional, that they save the world not only because they make good guns, but they save the world because they are the capital of democracy. I'm not saying they are, but that's the notion of exceptional. That America is the most democratic country in the world, at least among the big powers. We'll talk about that in this class. That's talked about in the Hook textbook. America is powerful, but it's also difficult to organize itself, to adopt new strategies, because the American political system is different from the Belgian. Well, let's not talk about Belgium. That's more complicated. It's different from the British system, right? The American president does not directly control the parliament the way the British prime minister directly controls the British parliament. The American president has to deal with the opposition much more strongly in the US Congress than the British prime minister has to deal with the political opposition in the British parliament. So that's another reason why Donald Trump talks in loud, belligerent terms, because he's trying to mobilize pressure on the Congress when he can't directly control the Congress the way the British Prime Minister directly controls the British Parliament. America has a very strong, vibrant civil society, partly because the Americans their history is a history in which they claim they reject powerful central government. Korea, Japan, Germany, very different. France, very different. Those are countries that have a long, centuries-long tradition, going back to their founding centuries ago, of strong central state government authority. The Americans were founded by people who rejected that because, well, partly for money reasons, partly for religious reasons, partly for both combined. The people that founded the United States were among a rising new middle class of people 400 years ago, 500 years ago, who saw the bourgeoisie, the aristocrats, the aristocratia, in their way to advancing and rising in status and money and power. So they left and went to North America, where they didn't have direct impact of a king and the nobility. So the Americans have strong tradition, for example, of independent churches, separate independent churches organizing themselves and organizing their local communities around the churches. That was the foundation of America. Whereas in places that strong Catholic tradition, like Italy and France and Germany with its Lutheran also. The church and the state were connected, right? And also in England. The King of England, the Queen of England is also officially the head of the Church of England. The Americans were founded by people that rejected that. So this makes America, the way America has influence in the world, the Americans like to say they support civil society in developing countries, that they support volunteer organizations, they give aid and assistance. That's why they founded the American University in Bulgaria, for example. I didn't tell you, right? Before I came here to Korea, I worked for 15 years at the American University in Bulgaria. American University in Bulgaria was founded by the US government. The US government, let me open that up. US government funded and supported the American University in Bulgaria and opened up in 1991. I came in 1994 there. I worked there from 1994 until 2009, coming here. The American University in Bulgaria. Why would the Americans create an American University in Bulgaria? Why would they spend American government money to create a university? Now, cynics and realists would say, because you're trying to brainwash the Bulgarians, right? Supporters of America would say, because America has always been about encouraging, developing the education of people so they can become good, autonomous, independent, active, effective citizens in a democratic society. I mean, these notes are trying to explain why when the Americans try to make influence in Europe and Asia and in Africa and in South America, they do it in an American kind of way. And the American kind of way reflects America's history, America's culture, America's attitudes that they believe in, that they inherited from their own history, and their ideals and stereotypes about, oh, America is all about giving everybody equal opportunity through education. Oh, that's my country. And that explains the American way of making influence in the world, which might be different from the Chinese way, or the French way, or the Russian way, or the German way. So when the Americans expand their influence, including with guns and weapons, they will explain it in terms of America's understanding of what's good and bad, right and wrong, and that comes from American history, American culture. And America can say, yeah, our culture and history is good. We are the most powerful country in the world. We are the most powerful country in the history of the world. Clearly, we are exceptional. America is exceptional. The world has never seen such a country that's so powerful and so democratic, supposedly. I'm not saying I agree, but that's the American way of explaining to itself and to you what it does in the world. And a lot of people believe it, including that right-wing church in Seoul that was protesting against Moon Jae-in, and that's been the center of that COVID-19 outbreak. America's great. Moon Jae-in is too pro-North Korean. God bless America. They're waving around American flags at those protests that led to the new infections, which is why this class is now 100% online. They believe that. They believe in American exceptionalism. I can't remember the name of the minister in the church. I mean, I've seen it, right? They believe in this. So a lot of people do. And okay, so non-state actors limit the actions and options of U.S. foreign policymakers, even while their prevailing views that these same actors are vital American-style democracy. So the Americans claim that the government of the United States has to take into consideration other actors in America that are not in the government to reflect American people's demands and expectations, including the interests of corporations that want to make money, ethnic and religious groups. You cannot explain US foreign policy in the Middle East unless you know about the Zionist lobby, the pro-Israel lobby. Right? I mean, it's very important in America. And the American government says, hey, America's a democracy. If the Jewish Americans, if many Jewish Americans want to America government to support Israel, we listen to the people. And those people are making demands, and we respond to them. Not just Jewish Americans, Christian evangelical Americans, right? Evangelical Christians want America to support Israel. We're a democracy. We listen to what the people want. And these people, they participate in elections. They give money to political candidates like Donald Trump. And if we win elections, we have to give them results. That's what democracy is all about. And if you Arab Americans and you Muslim Americans don't like it, well, then get organized. Do what the Jewish Americans have done. They got organized. They participate in democracy. Get organized. And then we'll listen to you too. But we listen to those people that are committed and devote resources to participate in a democratic political process. That's what democracies do. Americans claim that they are pressured by opponents of the US government policies, like WikiLeaks, and that there's limits to how much they can restrain them. And some people argue that the United States is maybe a victim of its own success insofar as, for example, when it's confronting terrorism, since it wants to supposedly wants to protect individual rights to privacy and freedom, that it, for example, missed what the September 11, 2001 hijackers and attackers, terrorists were doing in the United States, because the American government is restricted in how much it can gather information and surveil and observe and closely monitor American society because of its commitment to individual freedom, supposedly. The American public is very traditionally skeptical about government intervention in the economy. So the American economic system is not as closely regulated as it is, say, in other countries. And banks have more freedom to make money in creative, dangerous ways. And that supposedly led to the banking crisis in 2008 that caused the Great Recession, that affected everybody: France, Germany, Belgium, South Korea. And that's also true about the Great Depression back in 1929. That started in the United States with a financial crisis, with banks, and it affected the rest of the world. President Obama, when he was elected during the financial crisis. So he was preoccupied with domestic economic recovery, but he was not going to radically change American foreign policy because he had enough political difficulties. Remember, there's tremendous numbers of people in their careers, in their identities, in their beliefs that believe the Americans must be actively involved everywhere around the world as a dominant actor. And to challenge them, even Donald Trump, he's not withdrawing troops from anywhere. I mean, there's still 500 soldiers in Syria. He said he's going to take them out. They're still there. They're still in Afghanistan. They're still in Iraq. There's more in Iraq. He sent more to Saudi Arabia. He talks about we have to end endless wars. He's not ending any. He hasn't ended any. Why? Because there's too much political opposition to ending it. He doesn't care about Afghanistan. He doesn't care about Iraq. But he knows there are a lot of people in America that do. And he is already in danger of not being reelected. I mean, not just the money issue, but the pride issue. We were in Afghanistan since 2001, 20 years. All of those American soldiers killed, all of those soldiers wounded who lost arms, and we spent hundreds of billions of dollars. We're just going to leave and let the Taliban take it over? No! You can't understand public opinion unless you understand nationalism. It's not all about money. It's not all about this. This is important, but this isn't what people fight and die for. People fight and die for their nation's dignity and respect and independence. So for the Americans just to leave Afghanistan after all of that money and all of those American soldiers killed, I don't see how Biden is going to be able to do it. And that might be what Trump will say. If I get reelected in November, I don't have to worry about future elections. So I will do it then. I will take America out of Afghanistan and other countries because I don't have to worry about being reelected, because American presidents can serve only 2 terms, right? He's going to make that argument. He's already making that argument. But, well, we'll see. The internet. Look, Zoom. We're having a Zoom class over the internet. What created the internet? The internet was created by the Defense Department of the United States during the Cold War to organize American universities to do research. And then the Islamic State and other actors, so-called terrorist actors, exploited as well to organize themselves and find recruits. So can the US government, can the United States continue as the dominant world power despite its traditional distance from the world, right? The Americans like to believe, again, I say that carefully because it's often the case that as a typical human being, I can say one thing and do something else and not realize it and not think about it and not want to think about it. So the Americans like to believe we are focused on making money, business, international affairs. That's something that we never really emphasize. Of course, since World War II, they have emphasized it. But there's still a lot of people Donald Trump appeals to, right? The danger of world government, NATO's a danger. And he appeals to those people who are more traditional in this American view that America is a city on a hill. It's a special place, separate from the rest of the world. And he talks to them. But then when you look at the government's actions, it doesn't correspond with that. But eventually, at some point, rhetoric and words, they have an impact. They have some kind of political significance. How, though, is not clear. And it's not even clear to most people. But I do know Americans, like Frenchmen, like Germans, like Japanese, do not like to lose wars because they feel humiliated. Good guys win, only bad guys lose, right? If you lost a war, maybe it's because you were wrong. So no, we don't want, and that's the theme of that presentation I was showing you. Why did America lose that war? How do Americans understand why they lost that war, the Vietnam War? How do they understand the Americans, how the good guys, America, the fighters for democracy, for freedom, how could they lose the war against communism in Vietnam? How do they understand that? How do they reconcile that? That's the theme of that presentation I was showing you. Okay, so you know, I had a plan for an exercise in class, and I'm kind of worried because I've never done this before. So one of the objectives in this class is to help you be more effective citizens by critiquing and understanding and critiquing assumptions. New York Times is the most influential news source in America. It's not the biggest, it's not the most rich, but it is the newspaper that is most influential among elites. By the way, you know, New York Times is moving its Hong Kong operations to Seoul because of the security law passed by China over Hong Kong. So the New York Times is moving its East Asian headquarters to Seoul. Cho Sang-hun is the New York Times bureau chief in Seoul. He's been there forever. And so this is an editorial opinion piece in the New York Times. This person is trying to influence American public opinion in order to try to influence US foreign policy, because America is a democracy, public opinion, right? And this person, who is this Emma Ashford? Emma Ashford is a research fellow in defense and foreign policy at the Cato Institute. This is a think tank, one of many, many different think tanks that's attempting to influence US foreign policy by affecting the thoughts and thinking of foreign policy government officials, and also influencing public opinion by writing articles, opinion editorial pieces in the New York Times, right? So this is a libertarian, traditionally a libertarian think tank, meaning it likes small government, small government. Free economy, laissez-faire economics, small government. It's not like a Christian evangelical conservative orientation. It's more about economics, small government, free enterprise. Old, influential, has a good reputation. She writes, when Joe Biden was nominated as the Democratic Party's presidential candidate last week, he committed, let's see, this is too slow. He committed to not only to rebuilding America, but also to build it back better. His campaign is selling a promise. Soon President Trump will be gone. The United States can return to the normalcy of the pre-Trump life, slightly improved. This is as true as his foreign policy as anything else. In other words, he's going to go back to the way America acted from 1948 until 2016. Keep lots of those military bases, take the lead in dealing with the rise of China, keep American leadership in Asia and Europe. To anyone who has lived through the chaos of the last 4 years under Trump, a reversion to the status quo ante is tempting. Going back to what existed in 2016 is good. Who wouldn't want to go back to a time when foreign policy wasn't made by Twitter, right? And a Biden presidency would undoubtedly look and sound better than Mr. Trump's. President Biden would give speeches about American leadership, about reiterate American support for allies, and criticize human rights abuses overseas. But we should be wary, Miss Ashford says. Mr. Biden appears less likely to improve America's foreign policy than return us to a narrow American consensus that has failed our country and the world, she's claiming. She's claiming that what existed until 2016 produced Donald Trump. Endless wars, invading Afghanistan, then Iraq. Who else are we going to invade? Iran? The campaign's talk of foreign policies, to be fair, vague. It is all of invocation, full of invocations of American leadership and global challenges. This is Biden, not Trump, right? The boilerplate you might expect, what everybody's been saying since 1945. And it pledges an extremely wide-ranging set of foreign policy goals, from advancing human rights and confronting autocrats and populists, supporting democracy, right? Promoting democratization in authoritarian countries. Supposedly Trump doesn't care about whether or not a country is democratic or not, or whether or not a country's regime authorities abuse human rights. Trump doesn't care. To ensure the United States military remains the strongest in the world. Someone might say, but I mean, it's not just Donald Trump that likes the Saudi royal family. Everybody since 1945 has supported the Saudi royal family. There's nothing new about that. The Americans have always supported the Kuwaiti royal family. These aren't just platitudes, she says. They signal a reversion to the post-Cold War view that America can and should be everywhere and solve every problem. It's the kind of approach that could commit the United States to more years of high military spending, an even longer global war on terror, currently fought in over a dozen countries, further humanitarian interventions, and turn to quagmires and a more confrontational approach to China and Russia. In short, Mr. Biden's vision looks less like a better approach to foreign policy and more like a rerun. As Paul Musgrave, a political scientist at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, put it, his positions are so familiar that they seem more like a retelling of the conventional wisdom than a foreign policy platform. So that's what Hook wants to explain to you. What is that conventional wisdom? Where did it come from? Why does it exist in Washington? But this familiar approach has led again and again to failure in recent years, whether in Iraq, Libya, Ukraine, or elsewhere. The United States has encountered problems that can't be solved with a more muscular approach or more American leadership. To use two favorite cliches of the foreign policy establishment, and Mr. Biden is the establishment. Mr. Biden is ignoring the one positive aspect of Mr. Trump's presidency that has pushed Americans to question whether our traditional foreign policy approach actually makes us safer. Okay, so of course, a Biden administration wouldn't necessarily replicate past failures. Campaign documents and stump speeches aren't always good guides to how a president will act. And Mr. Biden's record is decidedly mixed. For every substantive failure of judgment, like his support for the invasion of Iraq in 2003, there are times where he's been a surprising voice for restraint, as when he argued against the overthrow of Libya's Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. But Obama did it anyway, and Libya is chaos, ongoing war, refugees from Africa going through Libya to try to get to Europe by the thousands and dying every year, drowning in the sea on the way. That wouldn't have happened if there was a stable government in Libya, and there hasn't been one since 10 years. Because Barack Obama decided he wanted to get rid of him. For now, the best way to understand where Mr. Biden stands today is to look at the people with whom he has surrounded himself. If personnel is policy, so far it looks like we'll be getting a little more than a rehash of the Beltway consensus. The Beltway, what's the Beltway? You know what a belt is? Like, this is a belt, right? You see my belt here? So cities in the United States are surrounded by broad highways built after the war called belts. So what is it? Interstate 275 is the belt, surrounds Washington, D.C. as a belt. Interstate Highway 275. So whenever you hear somebody say, what's the Beltway consensus? What's the establishment consensus? The people who live and work and get their paycheck and their jobs in Washington, D.C., in other words. What's the establishment views? Joe Biden is Mr. Beltway. His whole life, his adult life has been, almost all of it's been in the Beltway. In Interstate 275, surrounding Washington, D.C. So I was going to ask you, okay, so you are role play. You are Trump 2020 presidential reelection campaign foreign policy advisors. You know that Trump is criticized by the Democrats for undermining America's so-called moral leadership in international relations because of charges that Trump's Trump likes authoritarian rulers like Kim Jong-un in North Korea and Vladimir Putin in Russia. Democrats and Biden claim Trump undermines American soft power. That is, motivating others to accept U.S. influence because America is an attractive country. It's democratic. It loves human rights. It's rich and powerful. They claim that American soft power makes America most powerful. Not its hard power, not its military and its money. It's soft power. It's attraction to people because of its support for human rights and freedom and democracy. So, write a letter to the editor of the New York Times to respond to this, right? To Miss Ashford's op-ed. This is from just a couple days ago. This is what they do. So here you see, here's examples of letters to the editor of the New York Times. Somebody was writing earlier about something, and so to the editor, look, only 114 words long. They got to be short. 114 words. See, 114 words. Or even shorter. 36 words. Donald Trump, Joe Biden, they think about every period, every comma in any word that they say should try to influence public opinion. Sherrod Brown, he's a senator from Ohio, commenting on something, 68 words. So I would like you to respond in very short words, in very small words, like these letters to the editor, in a letter to the editors, about supporting Donald Trump. How would you respond to Miss Emma Ashford's op-ed here piece that we see here? You work for the Trump campaign. You got to immediately respond to what Ashford wants to try to get Donald Trump reelected, right? Remember, 90% of Americans have already decided who they're going to vote for in the election. They're not going to change. They either love Trump or they hate Trump. There's about 10%, maybe even less, of American voters who are not decided yet. You want to get to those 10% to try to get them to support Trump over Biden. What might you say in a letter to the editor? And I'm wondering, maybe I can't do this because until I can get, breakout rooms. Okay, so it says here, create breakout rooms. Okay, so you see these are the breakout rooms, open all rooms. Okay, so what do you see on your screen? Do you see that you are separated into 3 different groups of 4 in breakout rooms on your screen? Let me see. Yeah, you see these, you're in these rooms here? You can see this, right? So come up with a letter to the editor, each of you, short words responding to that editorial. In a letter to the editor, responding to Ashford. And I think I already gave you a suggestion, right? Saying Trump will be unleashed if he's reelected in November. He will have the decisional latitude to really change U.S. foreign policy because he doesn't have to worry about getting reelected. He will, unlike Joe Biden, he will radically change U.S. foreign policy so we stop spending all of this money on the military and spend the money on the COVID-19 crisis to recover from this horrible disaster of the COVID-19 pandemic. We'll spend that money at home in the United States instead of fighting wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. We need the money at home to deal with this horrible COVID-19 pandemic. Something like that. It's up to you. But you know, he's got what Trump calls the deep state. The deep state is opposing Donald Trump. Donald Trump's enemy is the so-called deep state. It's all of those vested interests in the bureaucracy, in the private sector that supply the bureaucracy, that want to maintain the status quo. And they are trying to defeat Donald Trump because Joe Biden is Mr. Beltway. He's Mr. Consensus. He's Mr. Establishment. So are you in your breakout rooms? So come up, somebody in the group, come up with a proposal or some words that you would write. Remember, it's got to be very short, very short. You see, this one is only 36 words, right? This guy, this is like what, 36 words, very short. How would you respond if you're in the Trump campaign? Who's unassigned? Okay, so do that. Talk to each other. Come up with somebody come up with something to say, an outline, a first draft that you can share with us about what you would say, what you would write in a letter to the editor to try to help Trump get reelected. Can we do that? Can we try that? See how this works on the breakout rooms? Okay, so we just have 5 minutes left in class. We have to sign off at 10 till 12 o'clock because other professors use this Zoom account for other classes. So we can't go past time. I was told that. Okay, so oh, okay. So I'm trying to find. You ready? One more minute. So I think if I close all rooms, it has 30 seconds. You have 60 seconds to finish. So let me close all rooms. All breakout rooms will close in 57 seconds. Come up with something. How would you begin to respond to Professor Ashford at the Cato Institute and a letter to the editor to be published in the New York Times? Okay. Yeah, this is exciting here. All right. So who wants to go first? Share with us your thoughts about what you would say in a letter to the editor of the New York Times in response to Professor Ashford. Who wants to just go on, because we've got 2 minutes, so we don't have time to get too organized here. Whoever wants to speak, please share with us your thoughts, how you would begin to think about a letter to the, what would you include in a letter to the editor in response to that editorial, that opinion editorial piece in the New York Times? There's no right or wrong answer. What do you think? What would you say? Make sure you unmute. Anything. You can't be. There's no wrong answer. Anyone? Well, I think I would tell you, that's what I would say, since we have 1 minute left, right? I would say something like, Trump will be unleashed if he gets reelected. Trump will take on the deep state. And he will, since he doesn't have to worry about future elections, he will undertake the radical changes to bring our soldiers home, and we'll spend that money that we spend on defense, all $750 billion of it, we will bring it back home, and we will spend it on rebuilding America from the COVID-19 disaster. That's what I would say. And so let's watch what's in the news. I'm going to watch what's in the New York Times letter to the editors. Somebody should say that, right? That would be what you want to say to try to win over those undecided American voters. They will decide who wins the American elections. Right now, I think it's likely that Biden will win. But people were saying the same thing about Hillary Clinton 4 years ago. Oh, she's going to win. Yeah. But the people that support Donald Trump, they love Donald Trump. They think he is Jesus Christ. Literally. He represents God. He's a prophet. Biden, Joe Biden, yay. Establishment, Beltway, yay. And that characterizes nationalistic politics. Nationalists, they are enthusiastic, and their enthusiasm tends to dominate the political system. Michael Moore, who was one of the only people that predicted that Donald Trump would win in 2016, yesterday he predicted that Donald Trump will win re-election. You know, the guy that made those films like Bowling for Columbine and Sick in America. Okay, that's where I have to stop today. And as we try to figure out further how to use this Zoom, and I will post the recording. I will use the recording to note who was here, who attended class today, okay? So, okay, that's it for today, and I'll see you on Friday, okay? And we'll talk more about the next week's paragraph assignment. Any questions? If not, then I think that will be it for today. Oh, there it is. Okay. And that's all. Okay? Bye-bye.
Okay, see you.
You.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay, bye.